Back to Yehoshua's Daf Yomi Shiur, where the Daf continues daily until the complete revelation of the Messiah, the son of David, Mashiach ben David. Today we'll be studying Tractate Chullin, page 71, and starting with Amud Aleph, side A. The top of the page, Behema Tmea Bichlal Chaya Tmea. Behema Tmea Bichlal Chaya Tmea Behema Toira Bichlal Chaya Toira V'Lashon Hazeh Amar Li Chaval Al Ben Azai Shilo Shimesh Et Rabbi Ishmael. And likewise, a non-kosher behema is included in the category of a non-kosher chaya, and a non-kosher behema is included in the category, and a kosher behema is included in the category of a kosher chaya. Accordingly, although the verse here is referring to a behema, and it is understood to be referring collectively to both a behema and a chaya, and teaches that the carcasses of both types impart impurity. Upon hearing this, Ben Azai said to me in these words, "Woe unto Ben Azai, who did not serve Rabbi Yishmael. Chaya b'chla behema menola nechsiv zois behema shel techelu shor esech savim v'goy ayar u'tzvir yachmal v'go." Okay, tzad chaya b'chla behema. The Gemara analyzes Rabbi Yishmael's statement. From where do we derive that according to the Torah, a chaya is included in the category of behema? As it is written, these are the behema. Behema is a type of animal like an ox, a sheep, a goat. And a chaya is like, I guess they qualify it as undomesticated. Domesticated animals are undomesticated. So it says these are the behema that you may eat: an ox, a sheep, a goat, a deer, and a gazelle, and a fallow deer, and a wild goat, and an oryx, and an aurochs, and a wild sheep. Deuteronomy 14:4-5. Despite employing the term behema, the verse also lists the deer and the gazelle. I would imagine the other one's oryx. Doesn't sound like a behema. But for sure, deer and gazelle are chayas, which are undomesticated animals. How is this possible? From here, it is evident that the chaya is included by the Torah in the category of behema. Behema b'chlal chaya minala nechsiv zois chaya asher toichlu mikol behema asher al haaretz kol mefreses parso haketzad behema b'chlal chayo. From where do we derive that the Torah, according to the Torah, behema is included in the category of a chaya? As it is written, these are the chaya that you may eat among all the behema that are on the earth, whatever parts the hoof. Leviticus 11:2-3. How is this possible that the verse mentions a chaya and then refers to a behema? This indicates that a domesticated animal is included in the category of a chaya by the Torah. Chaya Torah bichlal behema Torah desimanim. The Gemara further clarifies the principle that a kosher chaya is included by the Torah in the category of a kosher behema is relevant with regard to the distinguishing characteristics of kosher animals. The Torah states with regard to a domesticated animal that only a species that chews its cud and has cloven hooves is kosher. Nevertheless, this requirement is understood as a reference to both domesticated and undomesticated animals. Chaya tamea bichlal behema tamea liharvo. The principle that a non-kosher chaya is included by the Torah in the category of a non-kosher behema is relevant with regard to the prohibition against mating one species with another. The Torah states the prohibition with regard to a behema: you shall not let your animal mate with a diverse kind. Leviticus 19:19. Nevertheless, this is understood as referring to both a behema and a chaya. Behema tamea b'chlal chaya tamea lechidei Rabbi. The principle that a non-kosher behemoth is included by the Torah in the category of a non-kosher chaya is relevant with regard to that which Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi taught. As it is taught in a Braita, the verse delineates a case in which one is obligated to bring a sliding scale offering as an atonement. A person who touched anything impure, or the carcass of a non-kosher undomesticated animal, chaya, or the carcass of a non-kosher domesticated animal, behema, or the carcass of an impure creeping animal, and is guilty, it having been hidden from him that is impure, Leviticus 5:2. But the nature of the transgression for which the person requires atonement is not apparent from the verse. Tanya, Rabbi Omer, Ekra ani chayo behemo lama nemro. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi says, since the domesticated animal is also referred to as chaya, it would be sufficient if I would read, the verse would write only the clause about a chaya, and I would have known that one who touches a carcass of any non-kosher animal is impure. Why then is an explicit clause about a behemoth stated? It serves as the basis for a verbal analogy. Nemra kan behemoth meo, nemra halon behemoth meo, mal halon tumas koidesh, afkan tumas koidesh. It is stated here with regard to one who is unaware that he touched an impure item, non-kosher behemoth, and is likewise stated below with regard to one who is aware that he touched an impure item, non-kosher behemoth, in the following verse. And when anyone shall touch an impure thing, whether it is the impurity of a man or a non-kosher behemoth, and eats the flesh of a peace offering to the Lord, that soul shall be cut off from its people. Leviticus 7:21. Just as below the verse is referring to the defiling of sacrificial foods, so to here the reference is to the defiling of sacrificial foods, and therefore one must bring a sliding scale offering as an atonement. Behema tehoiro, bichlal chaya tehoiro, litziro ditnan, hamapeles min behemo, b'chaya v'oif, bein tmein, bein tehoirin, im zachar teshiv lezachar. The Gemara clarifies the final statement, the principle that a kosher behemoth is included by the Torah in the category of a kosher chaya is relevant with regard to the formation of children, as we learned in a Mishnah, Nida 21a, with regard to a woman who miscarries a fetus that appears to be in the form of a type of behemoth, chaya, or bird. Wow, it's scary. Whether it had the form of a non-kosher species or a kosher species, if the fetus is a male, then she observes the periods of impurity and purity required for giving birth to a male. Even nekeva, teshel nekeva. The Mishnah continues, and if the fetus is a female, then she observes the periods required for giving birth to a female. After giving birth to a male, a woman is impure for 7 days, during which it is prohibited for her to engage in intercourse. During the next 30 days, she may immerse in a ritual bath at any time, after which she is permitted to engage in intercourse, even should she then experience the discharge of uterine blood. Nevertheless, during the entire 40-day period, she may not enter the temple or be in contact with consecrated foods. After giving birth to a girl, the length of each of these periods is doubled, 14 days and 66 days, respectively. See Leviticus 12, 2-5. If the sex of the fetus is unknown, she observes the strictures of a woman who gave birth to both male and to a female. Accordingly, it is prohibited for her to engage in intercourse for the 14 days after birth, after which she immerses in a ritual bath. After that, she is permitted to engage in intercourse despite any discharge of uterine blood until the 40th day after birth, meaning for 33 days following the 7 days, she would have been prohibited from engaging in intercourse. If the fetus was male, the prohibition against entering the temple, however, continues until 80 days have passed from the birth. Rabbi Meir. This is the statement of Rabbi Meir. The Gemara elsewhere in Nida 22b explains The Rabbi Meir derives his opinion from the fact that the term formation is used to describe both the formation of man, then the Lord God formed man, Genesis 2 verse 7, and the formation of animals and birds. The Lord God formed every animal of the field and every bird of the air, Genesis 2:19. Furthermore, he holds that the term chaya is referring to both domesticated and undomesticated animals, and concludes that a woman observes these periods of purity and purity if the fetus has the form of any of these types of animals. And the rabbis say, what do the rabbis say? What do the rabbis say? And the rabbis say any fetus that is not in the form of a human is not of human form is not regarded as an offering with regard to observance of these periods of purity and impurity, and she is permitted to engage in intercourse provided she does not experience a discharge of uterine blood. The Gemara returns to explain the opinion of the rabbis cited in the Mishnah, who hold that a dead fetus found inside its mother's womb does not impart impurity, irrespective of whether it is of a kosher or a non-kosher animal. Rabbi Yossi Haglili disagrees and holds that a dead fetus inside a non-kosher animal imparts impurity. He derives this from the verse, a person who touched anything impure, or the carcass of a non-kosher chaya, or the carcass of a non-kosher behema, or the carcass of an impure creeping animal, and is guilty, Leviticus 5:2, which is referring only to non-kosher animals. The Gemara asks, and according to the rabbis, why do I need this verse? The Gemara answers that the entire verse comes to teach that which Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi taught in the Braita cited earlier, that the verse obligates one to bring a sliding scale offering only in the cases where one partook of consecrated foods or entered the temple while in a state of impurity, of which one was unaware. That's the Gemara. Now for a new Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Isha shemes v'rada b'sleich me'eho u'pasha chaya es yada v'niga bo achayat mea tumas shiva v'isha tohira ad sheyetze vlad. With regard to a woman whose fetus died in her womb, and the midwife extended her hand into the womb and touched the fetus, the midwife is thereby rendered impure with a 7-day impurity imparted by a corpse, and the woman remains ritually pure until the offspring emerges from the womb. That's the whole Mishnah. And the Talmud says, Amar Rabbah, Kishem shetuma bilua enum nitama kach tahara bilua enum nitama. Rabbah says, just as a ritually impure item that is encapsulated within a body does not impart impurity to an item that comes in contact with it, so too a ritually pure item that is encapsulated within a body cannot be rendered impure if it comes in contact with an impure item. For example, if one swallowed a ring that was ritually pure and then entered a tent containing a corpse, the ring would not be rendered impure. Tuma bilua minolon nichsi v'oichil v'nivlasoi chavis bigodov milo yaskinan de'achar samuch l'shkias achama v'ka'amar rachmana to'el. The Gemara asks, from where do we derive that an encapsulated impure item does not impart impurity, as it is written, and one who eats of its carcass shall wash his clothes and be impure until the evening, Leviticus 11:40. Meaning, he must immerse his body and garments in a ritual bath, and he then becomes pure at sunset. Are we not dealing even with a case where one ate from the carcass close to sunset and then immersed? And yet the merciful one states that he is pure once the sun sets, despite the fact that his stomach still contains pieces of the carcass that have not yet been digested. If so, it is apparent that An unencapsulated impure item does not impart impurity. V'dil mashani hasam delo chazila gehel. What's he saying here? The Gemara challenges, but perhaps it is different there. As with regard to the prohibition against eating a carcass, the Torah states, you shall not eat any carcass. You may give it to the non-Yehudi resident who is in your cities. Deuteronomy 14:21. The juxtaposition of the two parts of the verse teaches that the prohibition is limited to a carcass that is fit to be given to a Gentile resident, meaning it is fit for human consumption. Accordingly, perhaps the carcass that the person ate does not impart impurity, as it is no longer fit for a non-Yehudi resident, a Gentile resident, meaning it is now unsuitable for human consumption. Ad lekelev shapir. The Gemara comments that the effectiveness of the proof depends on whether a carcass can impart impurity to a person, despite its not being fit for human consumption. This proof works out well according to the opinion of Yochanan, who says a carcass imparts impurity to both this person and that food, even if it is unfit for human consumption, until it is no longer fit for consumption by a dog. According to this opinion, the proof is understood well, as the carcass in the person's stomach still has the ability to impart impurity to him, because it is still fit for consumption by a dog. Therefore, it is apparent that the only reason it does not impart impurity is that it is encapsulated within his body. But according to the opinion of Bar Pada, who says a carcass has the severe form of ritual impurity, which can impart impurity to people only while it is still fit to be eaten by a Gentile resident, and has a light form of ritual impurity even until the point that it is no longer fit for consumption by a dog, this proof is flawed. This is because it is possible the carcass in the person's stomach does not render him impure simply because it is no longer fit for human consumption. Can one claim that the carcass cannot impart impurity because it is no longer fit for a Gentile resident? Granted that if the carcass is not fit to be eaten by someone when it was eaten in his presence, as he is aware that it was swallowed and considers it disgusting to eat a swallowed item, but it is still sometimes fit for a person to eat when it was eaten not in his presence, and he is unaware that it had been previously swallowed. This is possible where one consumed a small piece of food and did not chew it prior to swallowing. The Gemara concedes this point and therefore accepts the proof. I don't see that. I don't see you can ever pass swallowed food for normal food. I'm sorry. Maybe if you took it and you put it in a challenge or something, you mixed it around. I don't know. It's kind of nasty, but okay. The Gemara asks, we found a source for the halacha that an encapsulated impure item does not impart impurity. From where do we derive that a pure item that is encapsulated within another body cannot be rendered impure if it comes in contact with an impure item? Kal v'chomer. Umak li cheres hamukaf tzumid pesil she'en matzil al tuma sheb'sach mil tamei de amar mar tuma rutzua boka'as ve'oila ad rakia matzil ad al tahara sheb'soicha milmata. The Gemara explains it is derived through an effort through inference if, in order to wear a vessel that is closed with a tightly sealed cover, which does not shield, meaning prevent the impure piece of a corpse contained within it from imparting impurity to other items in the same tent as it, the Gemara interrupts the explication of the inference and clarifies. As the Master said, the impure piece of a corpse that is in a tight space, for example, it is buried in the ground and there is not a handbreadth of hollow space above it, beneath the dirt, breaks through the earth above it and ascends up to the heavens, imparting impurity in that path. The Gemara resumes, the explication of the inference. Although the tightly sealed earthenware vessel does not shield the impure item, it does shield the pure item contained within it from being rendered impure. See Numbers 19:15. We'll stop here. It is the end of side A.